Welcome back to our video series on the US tax reform. Today we would like to pay attention to individuals. Elisa, we talked over the course of the last video series a lot about the taxation or the changes for corporations. But I guess we have also a lot of Germans which are living and working in the US. So what does the new tax reform mean for them?
Well, there's definitely a lot of changes that are going to affect individuals as well, and it will likely depend on whether they're considered a tax resident in the U.S. or they're considered a non-resident in the U.S. But assuming that we're talking about a resident, like you mentioned, a German individual working in the U.S., there are a number of things that they're going to notice. I think first and foremost is that the deduction for state income taxes as well as real property taxes has been capped at $10,000. This is a significant issue, I think, for a lot of individuals because for many people these two things were their largest deductions that they had. And so we're also noticing that there are a lot of states that are in an outrage about this, particularly higher income tax states like California and New York. They're pretty unhappy about it, and they're actually looking at ways to how they might be able to help their individual residents. And so they're actually coming up with some of their own laws, which will be interesting to see what will happen on that front. But some of the other changes include the elimination of all the miscellaneous itemized deductions. So this was things like tax preparation fees or investment expenses, things of that nature. Also, the deduction for moving expenses has been eliminated. So for any German who is moving to the U.S. for a job will now not be able to deduct his moving expenses or her moving expenses, and they could have been able to do that in the past. So I think there are a number of things. The last thing is that personal exemptions have been eliminated because they increased the standard deduction. I think they think personal exemptions are no longer needed.
Wow. Wait a minute. I mean, you're saying they're losing the personal exemption?
Absolutely. And I know that's got to be frustrating for a lot of people. And I think a lot about our individual investors. We have a lot of clients who are invested in real estate funds. And for many of those investors, that was the only, deduction they got was the personal exemption. So I expect for those people, a lot of their tax liability, is going to increase. I also think for some of those people, because the exemption was eliminated, if they were a fairly small investor, they may have not have even filed a return in the past, and now may find themselves in a situation where they actually have to file a return when they didn't have to before.
Wow. Elisa, what about estate tax changes for residents or non-residents?
Yeah, so the main thing that's happened is that the estate and gift tax exclusion has been doubled from $5 million to $10 million. So for those of us, or not me, I shouldn't say that, those of you who might have $10 million of assets, then I think this is a benefit for those people. But specifically with respect to our German Mittelstand clients, what we often see is that owners want to keep the company in the bloodline. But should they have U.S. situs assets and would like to gift some of those assets to their spouse, under the U.S.-German estate tax treaty, the exclusion could go from 11 million to 22 million. So this is pretty significant. The U.S.-German estate treaty is one of the most favorable treaties out there. So I think that's something to consider for some of our German owners if they have assets in the U.S. and whether or not they would want to gift some of that to their spouse.
So I guess we can summarize that the tax reform is not only for corporations, it has also significant impact for individual taxpayers in the U.S.
Yes, it does.
Thank you very much for giving us an insight on that. And thank you very much for watching. And please look at our webpage. We have other videos out there on the US tax reform where we go into detail on other important topics. Thank you.